So with two players, or two people trying to divide something, the simplest method we can use is called the divider-chooser method, or sometimes called the you cut, I choose approach. So this is a really simple approach. You've probably seen it in things like peanut butter commercials, where there's a sandwich maybe, and it needs to get cut in half. And so the parent tells one of the kids, okay, you go ahead and cut it in half, but then, Billy here gets to choose first. And so the idea is the divider is going to want to divide the sandwich in half as evenly as possible, so that in their eyes, each half is worth 50%. Because they don't know which of the pieces the other person's going to pick. And so they want to divide it evenly, and then the chooser, the second player, gets to choose whichever piece they value more, whichever piece they would like. Now, it's important to note here that people's values might be different. So let's say, for example, we had a cake. So here's a lovely cake, and it's got this big rows of frosting over here in the corner. And so maybe Janice is the divider, and Janice really loves her frosting. And so when she divides the cake, she goes ahead and divides it here, because she thinks that this piece is worth a lot more. And so because it's got the frosting, even though it's smaller in size, it balances out with this larger piece over here. And maybe Sam, who's the chooser, looks at these two pieces and says, gee, I don't really care about frosting. This piece is bigger, so to me, this piece is worth 60%, and so I'm going to take this piece. And so the divider in this case gets a piece that they value as 50%, while the chooser might end up with something they value more than 50%. Sam might end up with something he values at 60% here. And so it's entirely possible that the values of each player might be different. So let's look at this scenario. Two retirees, Fred and Martha, buy a vacation beach home in Florida together, and they agree that they're going to split the year into two parts, and then share the beach house. And so let's again. It's hard to describe fair division methods without knowing the actual preference of each person. So when we talk about these, we'll often state, and let's imagine that his preferences are. So let's say Fred is our divider, and Fred decides, I'm going to divide it up into two time periods. One of them is going to be November to February, and then the other one's going to be March to October. Now, this one's only 4 months long, and this one's 8 months long, but Fred values each of them equally because he really loves Florida in winter, so he values this November to February time just as much, even though it's a shorter amount of time, because he likes the winter more. So then Martha gets to pick whichever piece that whichever time period she wants. So Martha now chooses, and maybe she doesn't really care which one she gets. She likes all the time equally. And so she's going to pick this one because in her mind it's worth 8/12, or about 66.7% of the whole. So Fred is left with something he values at 50%, and Martha gets a piece that she values at about 67%.